Clean data as a service. How to make it clean and keep it clean. This is an inspiration session as part of the Service Leadership Summit, organized by the Service Logistics Forum. Your microphones will be blocked until the Q&A session at the end. For questions during the presentation, please use the chat function, and your questions will be answered at the end of the session. I will now pass on to Robert.
Yes, thanks. Managing data for thousands of different products, materials, suppliers, customers, and chart of accounts for multiple entities is a huge task. Different entities end up creating their own master data with their locally built standards, which leads to incomplete, inconsistent master data and duplicate and faulty records. Therefore, it is necessary to have a centralized standard procedure to maintain the master data of the enterprise across the globe. Let's take an example of spare part master data and talk about how to make it clean.
Thanks, Robert. To start with Make It Clean, we first have to understand what are our current data standards, where we are, and what we want to accomplish. We can start by making use of our existing material master data and transactional data like purchasing history and material consumption history. Using this data, we can finalize the scope of project. By reviewing every material record, we can identify obsolete and surplus inventory and duplicate records. Post, we have the final list of active materials. We start enriching these records. Enrichment of spare part data includes classifying that spare part to its respective taxonomy. This way, you can see what kind of spare parts your enterprise buys and what is the spend segregation across different categories. Next thing we enrich is the equipment and function information associated with the spare part, where the spare part is being used. Updating manufacturer information is the most crucial part of this exercise. With the help of the manufacturer information, we can also update the spare part description. Every spare part has their attributes or specifications. If we add these specifications in the spare part description, then it'll be simpler for the warehouse team, engineering team, or purchasing team to search for the particular material or to identify the material. After the normalizing and cleansing activity, a lot of information is still missing. We physically check these parts and update the records using the information present on their label or box. Based on material consumption and supplier delivery time, we will set the spare part criticality and replenishment values. This helps the maintenance team to be sure we have all the critical and vital spare parts available when they are required.
What kind of results do we generally see from this master data inventory cleanup projects? First, for a mature entity, on average, we see that around 40% of the records can be inactivated or should not be migrated to the new ERP system. About 5% of the records are identified as duplicates. This is a quick win of the project. Merging duplicate records will very quickly result in inventory reduction and improved availability. After reviewing the replenishment settings together with the technicians, the overall inventory can be reduced by around 25%. This includes scrapping and selling off parts no longer required and blocking buying of overstock parts until their existing quantity is consumed. Also, on average, the inventory of vital parts will get increased by around 4%. This exercise is not just an inventory reduction exercise, but it is about getting the right inventory with the right quantities. You will have better spare part availability at lower operational cost. And because the new database now has a limited set of spare parts, all following the same data standards, parts can easily be found and identified, increasing the efficiency and the quality of work from the maintenance, stores and purchasing departments. So these are the benefits of performing a master data cleanout project in a single entity. But what if your company has multiple entities, all producing the same or similar product or performing the same or similar service, using similar assets or equipment? And you want to clean all of their spare part data using the same company standards. In that case, you will need a standard defining company golden records.
These golden records can be linked to the individual entities and the individual manufacturers. Let's continue with our bearing example. Imagine a bearing being used by 4 entities of the same enterprise, each entity operating individually. Hence, each of them will have a different record of it, buying it from the same or different manufacturers or suppliers. Due to this, there will never be a global view of such spares used across the enterprise, as there is no record linking between the entities. Performing the individual master data cleanout projects will enable the enterprise to create a golden copy of the record, which act as a link between such coinciding records across entities. Not just that, with the cutting-edge data standards, all the necessary enrichment and classification of the golden record will add value to this data asset. With all of this in place, planning of inventory, warehouse, and procurement will be a lot accurate and easier. Then, the next part of our motto, we just have to keep it clean. Now that we understand the need to have cleaned, enriched, and standardized spare part data records in place, we must understand the need to maintain these data records centrally, such that they will be available as a data resource to all the entities of an enterprise. Maintaining such data becomes a lot easier with a central database. Now, you only create the record once, and it can be used by all plants. Think of cleaning the entire floor of a room with water continuously flowing out of the tap. Seems impractical and idiotic, right? The same would happen if we clean all the existing spare parts data, create and maintain golden records, and do not have a central process to create spare parts in the system to comply with the newly defined data standards. Instead of every plant creating their own spare parts, in the new process they create a spare part request to the central team. If the part already exists in the central database, it is extrapolated in the terminal's local database so that they can use it immediately. If not, then the new part is created in global database and then extrapolated to terminal's local database, maintaining the defined global standards.
What will this enterprise approach give us for additional results, on top of the results I already mentioned? First, it will significantly reduce the need for new part creation in the individual entities. Instead of requesting a new part, they just pull an existing part from the central corporate database, a complete, clean and normalized record. Second, there is a large opportunity to reduce spare part cost. You now have the ability to easily compare the cost of a part in plant A to plant B nearby, and then to renegotiate prices or resource the part. But you can also resource the part from the original equipment manufacturer to the original part manufacturer. Let's say a lot of equipment or machines are using Siemens controls. Instead of buying all those parts from the individual OEMs, you can buy them directly from Siemens or a local distributor of Siemens parts. But it can also go the other direction. I was visiting a warehouse and I saw parts from a Dutch OEM. They were sourced from a distributor in Japan. In this case, it made much more sense to buy the OEM parts directly from the Dutch OEM. The next step is to introduce commodity buying and to let a central procurement organization buy the commodities. For example, all your machines are using bearings. Why not negotiate a global frame agreement for bearings with one bearing manufacturer instead of buying them from a variety of equipment and bearing manufacturer and distributors? From there, it's another step to introduce global supply chain management. You consolidate the freight from multiple suppliers and then ship them to the entities from a central warehouse and cross-docking location to reduce freight cost and lead time. Third, data not being ready is a large factor for ERP delays. Cleaning your data upfront and remove this activity from the ERP implementation rollout can have a significant positive impact on the ERP implementation. So, in summary, individual material master cleansing projects bring you improved availability at lower inventory cost. It will improve the efficiency of your maintenance, stores and procurement organizations. A central material master database linked to the individual entities will give you insight in your global spend, and it will reduce the need for the creation of new parts. You will implement central governance to maintain your data standards moving forward. This is the foundation for commodity buying, global frame agreements and central procurement, and in the end, global supply chain management. It's like hop, step and jump.
We talked a lot about the importance of clean data, but why buy this as a service instead of doing this on your own? Some entities perform well on the part data standards and the parts creation process. Others are struggling, but it is often hard to find an entity performing well over a long period of time. And if you have one, can they take a leading role for all entities, or will you face resistance of not invented here? The head office can fulfill its governance function, but often do not have resources to execute many data cleansing projects at the same time, within a small time frame, and often do not have the desire to use corporate headcount to perform the maintenance function afterwards. Buying these activities as a service from experts is a good alternative. Clean data as a service. Thanks for listening. We are now open for questions.